13. Once at university, I fed $1 into a vending machine. Pressed C and 4, nothing happened, so I pressed the buttons again with more authority, then canceled the many buttons at the same time. I cursed and slapped it because I was 19 and someone was coming down the corridor, and I said, "Effing machine." Later, I saw another guy staring at it. I opened my mouth to tell him it was busted, but before I could, he slapped it inside the exact place I had and said, "Effing machine." I guess it's always uncomfortable to discover you're not as individual as you thought. But it really bothered me. From one perspective, I was an independent animal, exercising free will in order to elicit predictable reactions from an inert vending machine. But from another, the vending machine was choosing to withhold snacks in order to extract predictable mechanical reactions from young men. I couldn't figure out any objective reason to consider one scenario more likely than the other. I tried to raise this with a philosophy major at the floor party. She said, "Oh, you're a determinist." Her tone implied that this was naive and funny. I knew what the word meant when applied to algorithms, but not people. "You don't believe in free will," she said. "You think everything's gears and levers." She had a lollipop, and at this point she sucked it. I didn't think I disbelieved in free will. But as we talked, I learned she thought brains were magical consciousness fairyland, so maybe I did. Before we got anywhere, she went off and made out with a guy I didn't know. I felt lonely and unsatisfied and went downstairs and sat on the floor in front of the vending machine. I don't know why exactly. I just felt we had something in common. The street turned to meet the main road, and I followed it, moving between cars. A horn blared. A yellow sedan was in the lane ahead, and I saw the driver's eyes flick into the rearview mirror. Then the car leaped into the SUV beside it. Glass popped. I pounded past. I was supposed to be keeping a low profile, but that wasn't my priority. My priority was finding Lola before her heart stopped. Something went clunk in my gun arm. I thought, uh-oh, because maybe this was how they remotely shut me down. Then I remember what Jason had said about unlocking my ammunition. I felt an urge to test his hypothesis. I should wait. I should start shooting things on a major roadway. But on the other hand, it was really tempting. The day I bought my phone, I had a major report due and tried hard to resist playing with it. I held out until nightfall, but by 6 a.m. was still awake and discovering new features, and I had to call in sick. This was like that, only attached to me and with bullets. I should test it now, I thought. I couldn't wait to learn how it worked until Carl was running at me, swinging sledgehammer arms. That would be really poor planning. I looked around. Coming up on the right was a giant billboard. On it, an attractive family in bright clothes laughed and draped themselves around a game console. I thought, that. I raised my gun arm. I clenched my metal fist. The arm barked like a chainsaw. It sounded angry. The billboard burst apart. Shell casings jingled across the asphalt beside me, jettisoning from my arm in a flume of white gas. Pieces of billboard fluttered to the ground. As I ran through them, I thought, "I am Lola Rescuing Machine." And something inside me replied, "I am a Lola Rescuing Machine." I smiled because if that wasn't an echo, it was pretty clever. On occasion, Jason appeared at the window inside my head. Each time he imparted an impression of location, and I accepted this and closed the window again. I didn't need to plot a route. My legs could do that. It left me free to consider what I could do when I encountered Carl. Although after the billboard, maybe I was overthinking it. The facts were I had sped, strength, smarts, and a gun. Carl had arms. What was he going to do? Punch me in the head? Actually, maybe, yes. I should be wary of that, but that was surely the extent of the danger. All I had to do was keep my distance. The contours left the roadway and leapt nimbly over the railing. I flinched, but they knew what they were doing. The hooves dug into a concrete embankment, and I heard the locking pins fire. Twin jets of concrete dust spat by my face. I was damaging a lot of city infrastructure here. The threes tensed and sprang across a wide concrete storm drain. I braced, but it was like landing on a sofa. We ran beneath a bridge. I heard a helicopter and wondered if it was for me. Ahead was a storm tunnel big enough to drive a car through, but its face was protected by an iron grate. My legs slowed. They felt hesitant. Oh, I thought. Sorry. I raised my gun arm and clenched, and the grate disintegrated. The threes picked up speed. My abdomen rotated in three ringed sections, and I passed through the remains of the grate sideways, then swiveled to face forward again. My hooves slapped through the low water. It was black in the tunnels, but on the electromagnetic spectrum the walls were edged in fluorescent blue, and the water flared motion white. The tunnel turned, forked, and forked again. Finally I stopped. I looked around. I didn't see what was so special about this section of the tunnel. Then I noticed a hatch 20 feet above my head. A ladder ran up the wall, but I wouldn't be needing that. I raised my gun arm. Then I reconsidered. Carl was close. I shouldn't alert him. I lowered the gun arm and studied the other one, the one with the triple prong of claw fingers. I hadn't tested this yet. I wondered what it could do. I pointed at the hatch and thought, remove that. The claw fired out of my arm, trailing metal cable. It popped the hatch out of its housing, bent it in two, and pulled it back down into the tunnel. The cable ratcheted back into my arm, but before I could flinch, the side of folded metal hatch rocketing toward me, I was holding it. I looked at it a moment. This was pretty good. I placed the hatch on the ground and looked up. The access hole was not wide. I wasn't sure I could fit through there. But of course this wasn't something I needed to figure out, at least not with my brain. I had parts for that. The three settled in spring, my arms folded right against my body. We scraped against concrete and a constellation of sparks blossomed near my face. Then we were through. The three spread and my hooves locked onto the solid concrete floor. The crack of the firing pins echoed like gunshots. That was a shame. I was in a multi-level parking garage. Cars filled the bays. From my last contact with Jason, Carl was here somewhere, but I didn't know where. I chose up. As I rounded the first level, I began to feel nervous. This was not a great environment for spotting Carl. The concrete shielded EM and infrared was polluted with recently active car engines. I slowed. I decided to abandon my surprise plan. I was feeling pretty unstoppable at this point. I sucked in air and shouted, "Lola!" My voice bounded back at me. Nothing. I inhaled again. "Charlie!" I ran 2 levels up. A brown sedan backed out in front of me, its red brake lights screaming, and I pushed it aside with my gun arm. I didn't mean to hit it hard, but the contours braced automatically and the sedan bounced into the wall. I rounded another corner and stopped because there was Carl. He was bigger than I expected. He hadn't grown. I had just forgotten he was shirtless, which allowed me to see the metal support structure around his torso. His arms were huge, much larger than my own. He was built for strength. It was a moment before I realized he had Lola in front of him, his hands gripping her shoulders. She was so small by comparison that I had missed her. She stared at me with her mouth open. I looked different, of course. "Hold it," said Carl. "Now closer." This was pretty stupid. Carl had clearly not through our relative strengths and weaknesses. If anything, he should be trying to lure me closer. This was why I was going to beat him. The intelligence differential. I raised my arm. He didn't even know I had a gun. This was going to end really quickly. I thought, is Carl such a bad guy? Maybe he wasn't. Maybe I could talk him into releasing Lola and he could get the psychiatric help he needed. Now I had him at my mercy. I felt a little bad. He had only wanted new arms. You couldn't blame him for that. "Charlie," said Lola, "please listen to Carl." Her tone was odd. She didn't sound terrified, and why would Lola say that? Was she confused? I realized the way Carl's hands were hovering near Lola's shoulders. That wasn't to hold her. That was protective. "Carl wants help." "So he wants to help," said Lola. "He didn't kidnap me. He rescued me." I said, "What?" Carl cleared his throat. "Dr. Newman, this might be hard to hear. I thought, just suit him." A part of answered, "Yes." I thought I wanted to be strong. I knew I couldn't go back, for my fiancé, but I wanted to be prepared in case I needed to be strong again. So I wanted the arms, you understand. Stockholm Syndrome, was that when kidnapped victims sympathized with their abductors? It was a psychological condition. The thing is, after I got the arms, they started talking. Took me a while to believe it. Thought I was going crazy. I hoped Lola was hearing this and drawing the logical conclusion that Carl was insane. They wanted to crush things, to smash. I tried to tell people, but no one would listen. Not management, not the scientists, no those kids. They only cared about the arms. I started sleeping with them because it hurt to take them off, and one time I woke up and they were bending the bed in half. When I got irritated, they grabbed things. Then they threw a guy against the wall. I thought I'd killed him. That was when I knew I had to take off. I had to find you and warn you. His eyes moved to Lola. She tilted her head to look up at him. I did not like that. I didn't like either of them. "Sorry about leaving you behind. I thought you were dead." "Lola," I said, "come here a minute." I hoped Lola would help me figure out what was going on. That was why I saved her. I carried her right through the flames. I was strong enough this time, and I was right. She helped a lot. "Lola," I said, "really, come here." She said, "Charlie, can you talk to your parts?" This was irrelevant. "Carl, this is a gun. This arm. It shoots. So let go of Lola." "Oh, Charlie," said Lola. "Charlie, no. It's all right, just ahead of schedule. We have to get rid of your parts." I said, "Pardon? You told me once you didn't need to think about where you stepped, that the legs figure it out." "That's clever, Charlie, but that's the kind of thing you do." But it created a problem, because brains are plastic. They adapt. When you lose a limb, the parts of your brain are in charge of it. The neurons, they don't just sit there. They look for new jobs. There was a woman with a transtibial earlier this year, and I know how this sounds, but her eyesight improved once a man got better at math. We try to get people into prosthetics quickly so that we can capture those neurons for motor function before they wind up somewhere else. And what I think, Charlie, is your machine parts are too easy. They didn't give your neurons anything to do, so they wound up all over. Can you talk to your parts, Charlie? Do they have a mind of their own? Because I think that's you. Your subconscious being no longer so sub. But it's okay. Over time we can retrain your brain. With physical therapy we can move your neurons elsewhere. We can... Let me stop you there. I drew in a breath for an entire sentence. I'm not sure you appreciate that at this point I am ahead. Charlie, there is no getting rid of the parts. I am the parts. Look, I passed that point. I sawed off my arm, sawed it off. So let's calm down and forget crazy ideas that can never happen. The id is supposed to stay underwater, Charlie. It's not supposed to be conscious. The id, that's psychology, soft science. Carl said, Dr. Newman, I understand. Shut up, you don't understand. You have parts. I am parts. I'm technology. You're a man with help. You are nothing like me. Shoot him, suggested a part of me. It was a solid idea. I should have realized earlier, said Lola. I should have stopped you. You shouldn't. Move away from Carl. Charlie, we need to get you out of those parts before you go crazy. You're crazy, I said. It was not a very good argument. I was panicking because Lola was supposed to be on my side. The thing is, Lola, the person I was, nobody liked him. Then I did this, and people got interested. People like you. So how is this bad? It's not. It's a lot of parts. I'm still getting used to them. But let's not talk about going back. There's no back. I'm better now. Yes, the parts talk. But that's okay. It's like having company. And nothing works perfectly the first time. You don't scrap a project every hitch. You look for iterative improvement. The point is on balance. Am I not better? I could see from Lola's expression that this was not very persuasive. Forget that. Fact is, I need parts to live. There's nothing I can do. My hands are tied. It's possible that I don't care, even if I could survive. On some crappy life support system, I don't want to. Do you know what this body can do? I have GPS. What are we supposed to do? Go back to maps? I forced myself to calm. What you're talking about is asking me to live in a cave like a Neanderthal. Who's we? I didn't say we, but maybe I did. The parts, and I didn't finish the sentence. Shoot, said the parts. They had been saying this for a while, and it was increasingly hard to ignore them. My eyes moved to Carl. He was the source of the trouble. He had been since day one. Shooting him would solve everything, or not. Maybe the logic of that wasn't quite there. But the part that wanted to shoot didn't care. It just wanted him smashed. Lola would understand, not right away, eventually. It was the only way, because Lola wasn't going to stick around for a head. I didn't care what she said. This was not a viable, long-term relationship. It was best for everyone if I shot Carl now. Lola walked toward me. My heart leaped because it opened up an excellent opportunity for firing on Carl. She stopped a few feet away. Charlie, you never wanted to be a gun, did you? There's nothing wrong with the gun. My legs rose up on their hooves, settled. Things were going to happen whether I wanted them to or not. It was out of my control. We can get through this. Somehow we will... Look at Carl, I shouted. He's got arms. If the parts are so dangerous, why is he wearing his arms? Carl looked at Lola, then back. Well, he sounded apologetic, but only a little. Because if you won't give up your parts, I have to take them off you. Here's what should have occurred to me about Carl. He had attacked Better Future and lived. They had deployed armed guards and serious hardware, and he prevailed through clever planning and tactics. What this made clear, or should have, was that Carl was not an idiot. He turned away a moment, then his arms flicked in my direction. Something dark and cube-like hurtled toward me. Even before I saw what it was revealed that I had seriously misread the situation, because being stronger than Carl and faster and better armed, that didn't matter if he could surprise me by throwing things. The factor I had forgotten to include in my behavioral model was that I had never fought anyone in my whole life. I'd almost hit a girl in elementary school. She pushed me over before I could commit. That was the extent of my hand-to-hand combat experience. Carl was trained to overpower people. It was his job. The cube was a car battery. I flinched. The car battery ricocheted off my shoulder with a clank. I thought, wait a minute, that didn't even hurt. Then a second battery hit me in the head, and I screamed because some of that was flesh. I staggered in a circle. Red waves poured from my shoulder. Not exactly pain, but a rather logical outrage. My ring-like abdomen rotated. I brought the gun arm around, but Carl was already on top of me, his elephant arm swinging. His fist contracted into a solid punching block and connected with my stomach. Lola screamed. I staggered backward and sat down on the hood of the car. Its windshield cracked, but the surprising thing was the weakness of his punch. I tried to ride what I expected to be a huge transfer of momentum, but totally overcompensated. Sitting on the hood of a red sports car, I realized that compared with me, Carl's arms were not very strong. Of course they weren't. He was mostly organic. Despite his exostructure, he couldn't carry around my kind of hardware. For that, you needed to be metal all the way through. I didn't want to let his fist near my face, but he was not a big problem. The contours bent in 3 places, levering me upright. I swung my claw arm, aiming for his head. Carl not only deflected, but had time to first give me a patronizing look. He got out his fist beneath my arms, and red waves blossomed around the side of my chest. You want her, I said. Don't you? His block hands began to open, splitting into thick digits. One clamped on the forearm of my gun arm. The other closed on the thinner biceps. He strained. Red washed through me. I wailed, Stop, stop, he is ripping. She understands me, said Carl. My tripod claw fired and locked onto Carl's arm. His eyes widened. I pulled. Carl's metal fingers squealed along my titanium arm, losing grip. I could hardly feel my gun arm, but it was there. It was functional. I tried to back up, pushing Carl away with the claw. All I wanted in the world was to get my gun arm on him and insert a lot more metal into his body than I already had. My heels hit the car I had sat on earlier. I pushed it and it shrieked. Metal on concrete folding up against a low retaining wall behind me. I raised my gun arm and Carl knocked it aside. The car beside me popped and banged. Suddenly there was less resistance and I staggered momentarily. I didn't know what had happened, but it created a gap between me and Carl, and I swung the gun arm up. He ducked beneath it and punched the barrel upward. I kept walking backward, trying to find the distance I needed to finish this, and I discovered the reason the car was no longer pushing back on me. I had forced it completely over the retaining wall, sending it tumbling end over end through the air. The way I discovered this was all of a sudden so was I. The night sky revolved. Something bright and white passed before me. I was spinning head over hooves, feeling the terrible mass of body smell with kinetic energy. I caught a glimpse of Carl framed by the punctured concrete wall of the garage. The next time I revolved, I was ready, and my claw hand fired. Trailing metal cable. It snapped around Carl's exoskeleton and yanked him off his feet. Another revolution. The brightness was blotted by a shape I finally recognized as the car I had kicked backwards out of the lot. I hit the brightness and broke it into 1,000 winking pieces. Because the brightness was a lattice of frosted windows. The world slipped by, the sky rose. Carl fell toward me. I heard, but did not see the car burst against the floor of whatever building was down there. Then it became visible again as the crater of scattered glassless metal. It was a live preview of coming events. I tried to twist my body into a posture that made it less likely that I would land with the many tons of my body above my biological head, but it didn't respond. I screamed at my body's betrayal. My ringed abdomen swiveled. My legs extended, my hooves splayed, my toes extending. I hit the car like a bomb. The threes retracted, eating momentum. The locking pins fired. I felt my left hoof grip the floor and my right hoof slide. I had come down on the hood of the car and flipped it into the air. I staggered. I was upright. The car hood came back down and tried to cut off my head. My claw hand released Carl and the cable whipped toward me. The contours took a stumbling step, then another. We almost had a balance when Carl landed like a meteorite. The impact shoved us, and suddenly there was a man there, a guy with a white face and a horrified mouth, and it was everything I could do not to stumble over the top of him. My abdomen revolved. I walked backward through a tall display case. Glass rained down, but I was balanced. I was alive. I felt like crying. I loved my body. My claw hand completed retracted end of my arm with a thwack. I was in a store. It was a great white cathedral of glass and air. 24 people covered behind counters and display cases. The walls were lined with white flag-like posters, like political propaganda, and the cases were shrines built around tiny phones and computers and tables. Shards of glass fell from me like water. No one ran. No one screamed. I found that a little odd, but then again, I was in a technology store. Carl said my parts. That was a good point. I scanned the wreckage. Maybe he had bounced. He had a pretty good armor, but not much in the way of shock absorbency, I would have thought. I looked away and then back because I had caught motion flare, and he had a tire and was ratcheting back an arm to throw it at me. I raised the gun arm. This time I would not be distracted by minor projectiles. I squeezed my fists, and as the internal barrel spun, I thought, actually, that tire is going to make quite an elastic collision. It hit my gun arm and bounced into my face. My head snapped back. I saw into the heart of the universe. My body sank and my brain crawled into the dark, trying to remember where the controls were. Powdered sheetrock drifted like stardust. I got my head bounced with the horizon. People in hip shirts and cargo pants jostled for the double-door exits in pure-seeking algorithmic patterns like a school of fish. A man with such arms and a yellow-gray exoskeleton ran toward me. He seemed familiar. I knew him from somewhere. I thought, that's that guy, isn't it, Carl? And he punched my legs. I jerked but did not fall. The threes were better than that. Carl's arm wrapped around my throat. The other clamped onto my tripod arm and bent it back. Ag, I said. Pain waves poured from my elbow. I couldn't see Carl fire the claw hand anyway, hoping it might find a way to pull off his head on its own. Instead, we tore a chunk out of the floor and hurled across the store. It was not what I intended, but maybe it was intimidating. I got her, Carl said. I felt his hot breath on my cheek. I went back and I got her. My arm shrieked. There was a squeal of metal. I felt separation. A part of me winked out. My forearm fell to the floor, trailing severed white ear. It did not hurt, but the loss was the worst thing I had ever felt. I rotated. I flailed to my gun arm, but I could not reach Carl. His grip on my neck was unbreakable. His thick, blocky digits snapped at my gun biceps. I grieved for my arm. I did not want to be pulled apart. I told my parts, I don't know how to do this, but please just kill him somehow. The contours jolted forward. They crashed through a display counter and then another. We accelerated toward a wall. A moment before impact, my abdomen rotated. We hit the wall back first. Sheetrock burst around me. Everything was dust. Where? I thought. My parts said, I don't know. And we took 4 steps backward and brought the gun arm up. We could not see Carl in the visible spectrum, but the EM was as bright as a star field. We clenched our fists and screamed fury at him through our gun. We waited. Everything was awash with dust and heat. The floor was littered with broken plastic and glass and electronics. The dust settled. An object coalesced into a body. The gun arm whirled like a suggestion, but we waited to be sure. Sirens grew. The body did not move. Heat drained from infrared and the motion from the microwaves. The air cleared. I think we got him. Motion flare behind us. We turned and saw Lola picking her way into the store. Her eyes found Carl. He had entered the visible spectrum. His metal structure was bent and broken. Beneath it, so was Carl. Some of his metal had gone into him. I didn't want to gloat, but this was why you didn't go hybrid. Oh God, you killed him. Her hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes watered. He tried to take our parts. He ruined our arm. I showed her. Look, this is wrong. This is so wrong. Outside, tires screeched. Doors slammed. We should leave. Lola shook her head, looking at Carl. She wanted him to take our parts, we thought. It was a terrible shame, because she was so very lovely. She was dear to us, but she had a bad idea, one incompatible with our existence. Something went clunk within our gun arm. For a horrible second, we thought it had died. Then we remembered the noise from when Better Future had brought the gun online. We looked in our head, and on the other side of the window was Jason watching. We heard a beeping. The main lobby doors banged open to reveal a second set of doors, industrial and flat-looking. These ratcheted open. We realized they belonged to a truck. A ramp clanged to the floor. Down the ramp came Cassandra Connery in gray uniformed security guards who leaped out the sides, the flashlights illuminating glittering columns of dust behind them, the cats. Jesus, said Cassandra Connery, look at this. She stared at Carl without expression. If beauty really was of permanence, Cassandra Connery was more beautiful than ever. He wanted our parts. You've done a good thing, Charlie. You have. A forklift backed down the truck's ramp, an orange light swirling. It completed a turn and bumped toward Carl, its prongs like a forked tongue. Driving the forklift was a boy with tanned skin and rippling muscles. Now we can clean up. Charlie needs help, said Lola. His parts are destroying him. You calm down, said Cassandra Connery. You're enough trouble without working yourself up. Charlie, we have to go. Get in the truck. No, he said. No, she echoed. She sounded disappointed but not surprised. Why are you not getting in the truck, Charlie? You wanted to be passive, testing parts with no control. She pursed her lips. Jason? He came up behind her, gripping a tablet. Did you tell Dr. Newman we would be using him as a passive biological receptacle for rapid parts testing? It kind of slipped out. Did it, she said. Did it slip out? Yeah, sorry. His eyes flicked at me. She took a breath. Charlie, I won't lie to you. We were going to do passive testing, yes. But you need to see this from the company's point of view. You're an asset. We can't have assets with feelings. We can't have assets falling in love and kicking people through windows. The only way for it to manage the situation is with complete control over everything you do. I realize that's not ideal for you, but that's the situation. Now, once things have settled down, once we've got a nice production system going, that's open for review. We can try letting you walk around by yourself for a while in a controlled environment. You see, there's a future for you, a good future, if you get in the truck. Charlie, said Lola, listen to me. You're the most amazing person I've ever met, but not because of your body. You're more than that. You need to please remember that you never wanted to kill people. You never wanted to be controlled by your body. We looked away. We were not finding anyone here very compelling. Cassandra Connery wanted to put us in a cage, and Lola wanted to take us apart. And what we wanted was to run away and find a place to tinker. But then we looked back at Lola and remembered she was a kind of a part of us, too. Not a physical part, but a key one, in the sense that we had been a different person with her. We thought, do we need Lola? We felt competing desires, and none felt more Charlie-like than the other. We thought maybe there is no core self, maybe it was malleable all the way down. As a kid I had felt scared a lot for no reason, and then I got older and it stopped. So which of them was me? They were separate but equally valid. I got happier when I drank coffee, bad-tempered when tired, and with a combination of stress, missing limbs, and drugs I could kill people, and probably none of that said much about me. It was pointless to ponder who I was because I was whichever combination of chemicals happened to be sloshing around at that time. So I decided not to search for a true self. I decided to choose who I wanted to be. I liked the part that loved Lola. I decided to be that. Okay, I said. Cassandra Connery hesitated. You mean okay as in okay, I'll get in the truck? I shook my head. Lola edged toward me, relief spreading across her face. Cassandra Connery looked around. Everybody see that? Refusing to follow orders. He's raging out of control. She gestured to Jason. Do it. He began to peck at his tablet. The forklift rumbled toward me. Lola gasped. I could grab her. Run. I would make maybe 5 steps before my body turned to stone, then brain death. It was not a great option. I could lunge and club Cassandra Connery into the wall. More appealing, but with the same result, me dying. Jason was a little farther. I could possibly close that gap. swat the device out of his hand. It was a temporary solution, and that this was not likely to be the only method of shutting me down, but since all other alternatives were death, I liked it. Jason's thumb slid over the keypad. His eyes held mine. I recognized his expression from the day I'd waited for him in the lab, one leg dangling in the clamp. He'd lunged for the big red button and had been too late. He seemed to have learned from his mistake. Quick, said Cassandra Cottery. No time to lose. I could stomp, create a shockwave that would ripple through the floor and knock Jason off his feet. People would shout. Jason would scramble on hands and knees toward his computer, but I would be faster, crush it beneath one hoof. The guards would fall back, knowing what I could do. Before they rallied, I could sweep Lola up in my arms. I could leap out through the broken ceiling and land on the roof. There would be police and ambulances. I could run until they were all far behind, until Lola and I were beyond Better Future's digital reach. Before dawn in another city, we could break into a factory and use their equipment to locate the part of me that transmitted. I could teach Lola to use a magnetic drill, and she could startle my chest and ensure we would never be found again. This was a good plan. I raised a hoof. That was as far as I got. It hung there. It did not feel different. It did not deaden. But it did not listen to me. It was a statue. I tried to turn my head to look at Lola, but it could only shift my eyes. Lola shrieked. I began to choke up because now I was going to die. But I did not die either. I just stood there. Congratulations, said Cassandra Cottery. You always wanted to be a machine. Jason poked at the keys. My hoof came down. My legs jerked forward. I was not a statue. I was a puppet. Make him hit her, she said. Club her, or punch her in the head, or whatever. What? Said Jason. Make him hit her. She's no good to us alive. I don't think Jason started, and Cassandra Cottery turned and stared at him. Okay, his head bowed over the tablet. It was typical. Typical technical people always talked about standing up to management, but when the moment came, they turned to water. We are not a confrontational people. Lola, I said. My hoof thumped the floor. There was a pause. My abdomen swiveled toward her. I took a step. Jason, said Cassandra Cottery, can you go any slower? He pushed sweaty hair from his forehead. Run, I said, but it probably didn't matter, did it? In any case, Lola did not seem to want to run. She stood still until I stopped in front of her and raised my gun arm. Then she leaned forward and hugged my metal chest. Please run. I love you, Charlie. I felt the stirrings of an invisible force, and I connected a few data points. The first time Lola's heart had begun to generate EM. We had been getting intimate. The second time, I had leaped in via her balcony window to rescue her. At Angelica's, we had kissed. While driving blind, we had sideswiped a car, and she had said, I thought you were hurt, and now. I tended to be skeptical of anything that couldn't be measured, written down, and independently verified across a series of double-blind tests, but this was hard data. Lola's heart beats fastest for me. Lola, I said, kiss me. Lola jumped and wrapped her arms around my neck. I made you a heart, she whispered. It's a better future. Oh, her arm squeezed me. That's sweet. You'll need it after this. Charlie, she said, Charlie, if you kill the truck and me, my body, no, Charlie, they can't. Get away. They may be cops. Maddox, save us. Maybe? Still better. I felt small adjustments up my arm. It was correcting for Lola's new position. Please, I said, now. We kissed the high-pitched whine that came from deep inside Lola's chest. Could have been her singing. The electric wind that blew through me could have been her breath. The darkness that followed, it felt like an embrace. 0. Oh, someone said. Terrific, look at that. That's what is that, second stage? No, it's several people inhaled. There was clapping, a whoop, and laughter. Online the words said heavy. A way you might say we made it. I tried to blink. This didn't work, but I could see. There was a vase with 3 yellow flowers. Daffodils? I didn't know the names of flowers, but the vase sat on a plain white surface, and behind that was a beige wall. It seemed to me that the white surface was a bedside table of some sort. I tried to turn my head to see the rest of the room, but that didn't work either. Beside the vase appeared a face, a woman with almond eyes behind brown-rimmed glasses. Charles Newman? I swallowed or tried to. I said, what? The woman's eyes flicked at something behind me. She was a little close for comfort. I was glad to be awake and hopefully safe, but I wouldn't mind this woman backing up out of my personal space. Her eyes returned to mine, shining. For a second I thought we were about to kiss. Response. A clear response. Where am I? I felt panic. No part of my body was doing what I wanted. You are in a research development facility. You came here as a part of an asset diversification process that occurred following the hearings into Better Future collapse. We're a joint venture consortium of private and government interests. She glanced aside. Should I? Go ahead, said someone. Her eyes settled on me. The paramedics could do nothing. By the time they got in, you were unconscious. At first, well, they thought you were inside, of course, inside a suit. They had the JAWS tools for rescuing people from automobile wrecks, and they began to cut you out until they realized there was no body in there. Your companion, the woman, she presented her own challenges. Her heart had stopped, but didn't respond to compressions. At this point, they didn't know what was inside her. By all rights, you should have both died there. Then the employees intervened, the artificially enhanced employees. During the hearings, they were heavily criticized. I think looking back, people would regret how they were demonized. It was the shock of the new. Now, of course, she shrugged. Her eyes were beautiful. That almond color was very deep. Anyway, they saved you. They knew which parts could be detached without killing your brain. They kept you alive until you reached a hospital. You could appreciate the picture you presented. The doctors saw nothing left to save. By their definition, you weren't even a person. You were parts. But the better people convinced them to stabilize you. They fed you oxygen, water. Then the authorities intervened. The better people were removed. They were, well, as I said, it's shameful now. We had different values. They saw the better people as wrong, immoral. She grimaced. They were normalized, their enhancements removed. It was terrible. But it took us as a society a while to catch up to the technology, to how it had become a part of people. She glanced again to the side. Several times it was ordered that you could be decommissioned. There was a pressure on the hospital from within and without. Protesters camped outside once they broke in, and she gestured. You couldn't remain. A compromise was brokered. You came here at a point you essentially became a research project. The goal was not to keep you alive exactly. It was to, she hesitated. It's probably easiest if I show you. She turned my head with one hand. Showing no exertion, this room shifted. I saw a gray box. It looked like a piece of medical equipment. It had buttons, LEDs, about 100 black wires. One snaked toward me, another to a monitor. I thought, what is that? Letters spilled across the screen. What is that? In the screen's reflection, I saw daffodils. Beside them, sitting on the white bench top, was a small black cylinder on a block of white plastic. The cylinder had a lens at the front and a wire coming out the back. I realized I was looking at myself. Whoa, someone said. He's spiking. Load rising. We've got a lot of runaway processes. Core is locking. Shut him down. Shut him down. Darkness again. A strange kind of light diffused. I couldn't focus. I felt disoriented. I had forgotten where I was. Holding. That's good. Keep that there. A little interplay on the message bus. Nothing serious. Okay, let him have a look, but slow. The light lifted, or rather, a thing draped over me was lifted. I saw a man in a striped shirt and bow tie. The thing was a lab coat. As it rose, its sleeves snagged and pulled me around in a half circle until I was facing the steel gray box. The monitor. Words streamed across the screen. No box, I am in a box. Lola, 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 Lola. Crap, the lab coat flopped over me again. Take him down. You see that output? I felt myself shrinking, ceasing to exist in pieces. Maybe she's right. Maybe before I could hear the rest of this, I was gone. Charlie? I opened my eyes. No, I didn't. I had no eyes, but I saw Lola. Her chin rested on the heel of her hand, her elbow on the bench top. Her hair looked as if she had pulled it into a neat ponytail, then walked somewhere windy. Hey, she smiled. There you are. Lola, I said, can you hear me? I can't talk. You're talking, Charlie. Here. She swiveled my camera until I could see the monitor. Lola, can you hear me? I cannot talk. See, you're talking. Am I in there? Is my brain in there? No, well, yes, but not your brain. You're solid state now. How am I solid state? I can't believe this. She wiped her eyes. It's been so long. How long, Lola? It's been 6 years, Charlie. 6 years? How is it 6 years? It feels like 6 minutes, she laughed. Charlie, it's really you. I am a robot, wrote the screen. I am a box, a dead box. No, Charlie, you are not a box. The box is your body, that's all. Do not want to be a box, Lola. I stroked my camera. I couldn't feel it, but it felt comforting. They said you were gone, but I couldn't let them turn you off. I had to yell at a lot of people over the last 6 years because I kept wanting to give up. She straightened and unbuttoned her shirt. There was a white scar across her chest, thin and faded. Look, I got your heart. Lola, I miss you. She covered her mouth and looked away. When she looked back, her eyes gleamed. Well, you don't have to miss me anymore, Charlie, because let me tell you about the box. The box is special. The box has ports. Ports? Yes, you can plug things in. Things? What things? That's a good question. The answer is up to you, because it's just an interface, Charlie. It can be configured whichever way we want. But while I was waiting, I kind of went ahead and it's nothing special. You can do better. But I wanted to give you something like you gave me the heart. I wanted you to have something I built for you myself, so I made you an arm. An arm, Lola? I'm kind of stupidly proud of it. I mean, it's so basic, but it's a start. A start. Yeah. She lay her head on her arm, her free hand continuing to stroke my camera. That's what it is. It was odd seeing her through a lens, but not as odd as I would have thought. Perhaps people could adapt to anything. Now I thought about it, it was pretty strange that human beings felt comfortable walking around in bodies mostly made of juice. That was actually bizarre. Can you show me the arm? I said. Thank you for listening to me read Machine Man by Max Berry. Let me know if there were any parts in particular that you liked. I've read this book several times throughout the years. There's some parts about it that I feel like I kind of agree with in a way. and other parts that I'm not so much in agreement with, but it kind of depends. Anyway, thank you for listening, though.